Giant stories have been told throughout human history in a variety of ways. Giants, often known as ogres, are believed to be enormous beings whose movements cause the ground to tremble. While some people think that these tales of giants are only folklore, others think that giants actually exist in the real world. We'll show you the top 20 most enigmatic, huge discoveries in this video. Chinese superstars. The skeletons of humans who were exceptionally tall were discovered by archaeologists in Shenzhen, China in 2017. These giants were thought to have originated in China approximately 5,000 years ago. The massive, robust, human-like bones reached a height of 1.9 meters. Pottery and other jade objects were discovered with these bones. Since Chinese people aren't known for being very tall, this archaeological discovery was all the more remarkable. Imagine how tall prehistoric people from other nations would be if China had giants. Alien skull in Peru. It is said that a renowned archaeologist in Peru found the mummified remains of an alien monster. The triangle-shaped skull of this creature is almost as large as its 20-foot-long body. How on earth is it even feasible? It sounds like a story from Reddit, doesn't it? This might be an alien based on the peculiar features of the cranium. Furthermore, the physical characteristics of the alien body and skull have not been connected by experts to any of the historical human ethnic groups on Earth. This creature appears to be extraterrestrial. The massive skeleton found in the Saudi desert. The ancient skeleton remains of enormously large humans were discovered during a recent gas exploration project in the Saudi Arabian desert. To ascertain the actual details surrounding the origin of these bones, archaeologists are doing a number of investigations. Locals and religious experts, however, connect the legend surrounding these enormous skeletons to a passage from the Holy Quran. According to the legend, God created a race of large, strong, and tall humans who were able to break large tree trunks with their arms wrapped around them. We called this race Ad. Later on, this strong race rebelled against God, and their destruction resulted. India's huge skeleton. Is it possible that the country formerly had a huge race? Well, people gathered at an archaeological site where a team of researchers discovered the skeleton of an incredible 18-foot tall human. This has to be India's highest human skeleton. National Geographic provided support for tire explorations. The enormous skeleton was thought by experts to be a portion of the remains of enormously large prehistoric humans, red-haired giants. In Lovelock, Nevada, archaeologists discovered the remains of red-haired giants. In Nevada, Lovelock Cave was initially found in 1913. Miners discovered buried valuables, artifacts, and the remains of Sitka, or giants with red hair, in the cave. It is said that the Sitka are a mythical group of giants with red hair who practice cannibalism. A man who was approximately 6 feet tall had his mummified remains discovered by miners in Lovelock Cave. These incidents all demonstrate that giants did once reside on Earth. The divine imprint. Footprints, in addition to skeletal remains, are another piece of evidence that huge people existed. In South Africa, a hunter discovered a massive footprint about a century ago. It was known locally as the footprint of God. Based on estimations, the owner of the 1.2 meter long footprint must have been 27 feet tall. The rock bears no signs of foot traffic while it was still molten, such as engravings or markings. The footprint is said to be 3 billion years old, and as life on Earth was still in its microscopic stages at the time, it cannot be that of a current person. West Virginia giants. Numerous enormous skeletons have been discovered in West Virginia's prehistoric burial mounds. In the early years of coal mining, some of these enormous old skeletons were also discovered. Later, while the dirt was being dug up for various reasons, more were found. Additionally, in 1838, when excavating the Great Creek Mound in what is now Moundsville, West Virginia, archaeologists discovered strange, enormous human skeletons The length of these enormous skeletons was an astounding 8 feet. Ecuador's giant skeletons. Stories of a city of giants tucked away in the heart of the Amazon jungle exist there. Megalithic buildings and pyramids, measuring 260 feet in height and 260 feet in width, were found by researchers. Massive stones, each weighing almost 2 tons, were used to build these buildings. At first, adventurers thought the enormous stone constructions were organic. Subsequently, in 1964, the locals found unusually huge bones, one of which appeared to be the shin bone of a very tall human. Because of this, archaeologists came to the conclusion that giants had resided in the region. Bulgarian skeleton of the vampire. Is it possible to visualize someone severing a deceased person's heart in order to allay the worry that the corpse may reappear and consume human flesh? Several medieval giants' remains were discovered by a team of Bulgarian archaeologists while conducting excavations close to the Black Sea. Iron rods were used to penetrate the chest of the gigantic skeletons, ostensibly to prevent them from becoming vampires. This eerie tale describes a typical centuries-old pagan practice in villages. Bhima's stove. This Indian tale, demonstrating the presence of giants, will astound you. Bhima's stove is this one. The monument is located in Mahabalipuram, India, at Pancha Rafa's complex. The rock arrangement is thought to have been arranged by a giant named Bhima, according to geologists and archaeologists, rather than being a natural phenomenon. Bhima was thought to have stood 12 feet tall. Bhima used to light a fire under the cookware made of metal. The pot's underside still has soot residue on it. Legends from the area state that Bhima encountered the huge reptiles of Death Valley and was bestowed with unbreakable strength. Massive bodies. Discovered in Death Valley's underground tunnels. Massive weaponry, priceless objects, and the remnants of ancient animals were discovered among the dead. The enormous human skeleton were around 80,000 years old and 9 feet tall. The discovery is first reported in a San Diego newspaper in 1947, but both the narrative and the enormous remains appeared to vanish overnight. How could a discovery this significant disappear overnight? What an odd world we live in. The Serpent Mound. In 1894, while hunting foxes in Ohio, a farmer made an important archaeological discovery. He found ancient giants buried in graves. The burial sites could be found in Hillsboro, Ohio. It's interesting that a mound shaped like a serpent was near to the graves. Scientists investigating the graves discovered massive bones and other body parts. Many people think that the graves marked in the biblical story known as the Nephilim are the same graves. There are many who think the entire narrative is a simple fabrication. The Bible. If we claim that the biblical evidence is not very valuable, it would be a reasonable stance to adopt. However, the Bible has been cited in a variety of ways by numerous historians. Regarding our subject, the Bible serves as an excellent illustration, since it claims that giants have existed from the time of the Old Testament. For example, it tells the tale of how David used a stone and a sling to destroy the giant Goliath, huge ape tooth. In search of dragon teeth, a German scientist went to an apothecary in Hong Kong. He found a big tooth during his stay in a dingy drawer full of souvenirs. The most intriguing detail is that the tooth was proof of the existence of a massive creature known as Epithecus, not that it belonged to a dragon or an ape. The largest monkey species seen to date, the Epithecus, is thought to have some human ancestry. Individuals belonging to this species weighed 1,200 pounds and measured around 10 feet tall. The German scientists discovered a tooth that was between 9 million and 100,000 million years old. This narrative reminds you of King Kong, isn't it right? Mexican powerhouses. A picture of enormous human skulls went viral on social media in March 2015. It is said that these skulls were discovered in a small community in southern Mexico's Sierra de Tepalapa. It was eventually discovered that the image was the creation of a graphic artist and wasn't real. Still, the image did start a conversation regarding the claimed existence of a gigantic species called Kinemecin that roamed Mexico. Members of this family were supposedly Zechua, who stood 20 feet tall, and Tilcasino, who was 10 feet tall. Truly an incredible finding. Mysterious giant skeleton. While excavating a historical site in the Krasnodar region of the northern Caucasus, a group of Russian archaeologists unearthed an amazing discovery. The bones of giants were discovered. The bones are thought to be the remains of prehistoric humans who lived approximately 4,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. The male skeletons stood 2 meters tall, but the female skeletons were only about 1.7 meters tall, according to archaeologists. The Giant of Ohio. This is an enormous Ohioan tale. One day, laborers were digging a cellar on Webster Street across from a gigantic skeleton. The massive skeleton made it quite evident that the person to whom it belonged was extremely tall. The height of this skeleton was 7 feet. This enormous skeleton's bones disintegrated most of the moment they came into contact with air. Because of this, archaeologists were unable to determine if it was Indian or American in origin. The remains had to have been buried a very long time ago, that much is evident. The massive Cyclops skull. While some discoveries might sound like scary stories from horror films, these were true discoveries. A group of men discovered something quite unusual on a misty winter's day. A massive skull that contained the socket of a single eye. The hideous-looking skull belonged to a monstrous creature that archaeologists connected to a colossal, one-eyed, red-eyed, anal giant known as a cyclop. This cyclop was thought to be 6 feet tall and 6 tons in weight. It was thought that this fascinating fossil was at least 3 million years old, the well-known giant of also. Recently, scientists discovered the remains of Miguel Joaquin Eledici, a well-known giant. Miguel is regarded as a significant historical person. Throughout the 19th century, he visited with European royalty, including Queen Victoria. Miguel is said to have had gigantism from birth. He weighed 470 pounds and was 7 feet tall as an adult. His bones were buried at a cemetery in Ozo, Spain, following his death in 1861. His remains were surprisingly discovered at the same cemetery where he was first interred, despite the fact that they had long been believed to have been stolen. An unusual massive skeleton in Thailand. In Krabi, Thailand, a massive ancient humanoid skeleton was discovered in a cave. The male skeleton stood roughly 6 meters tall. The most astounding thing about the skeleton, though, is that there were remnants of a serpent discovered adjacent to the enormous skeleton. It is thought that a horned snake in a cave must have killed the enormous skeleton. Many in the public were curious by this finding and wondered if snakes enter cemeteries covertly to feed on the dead. Which of these findings most amazed you?